Experienced mushroom hunter Max set out for his favorite clearing, hoping to gather a bountiful harvest. He strolled leisurely along the familiar path, carefully scanning the undergrowth. Suddenly, his gaze caught sight of a strange mushroom standing out from the familiar bolets and chandeliers. Max cautiously approached, examining the find. The mushroom was a pale gray color, with a long stem and a cap of a peculiar shape. There was something captivating yet unsettling about its appearance, but curiosity prevailed, and the mushroom hunter carefully cut it, wanting to examine it more closely. As soon as he placed the mushroom in his basket, he noticed another one, growing a bit further down the path. It was as if an invisible thread was pulling him deeper into the forest, where more of these peculiar mushrooms could be seen. Max couldn't tear his gaze away, feeling drawn forward, towards an unknown destination. Step by step, he delved into the woods, almost hypnotized by the strange fungi. Their pale caps seemed to beckon him, making him forget everything else. He no longer noticed the surrounding nature or even the passage of time, completely absorbed in his task. Suddenly, a faint hissing reached his ears, emanating from dense undergrowth. Max froze, peering into the dark thicket. His heart pounded in his chest as he made out a serpentine silhouette in the shadows. Fear gripped his body, but curiosity prevailed. Slowly, trying not to make a sound, the mushroom hunter continued on his path, glancing towards the mysterious source of the sound. With each new mushroom he found and placed in his basket, the unease grew. But Max seemed to have lost control, as if an invisible force was leading him deeper and deeper into the forest. He could no longer stop, possessed by the desire to gather as many of these strange, alluring mushrooms as possible. Entranced, Max approached a large, rotten tree, around which many of the captivating fungi were growing. He greedily pounced on their collection, oblivious to everything else. But just as Max reached for another mushroom, a massive centipede suddenly emerged from a deep crack in the tree trunk. Before the mushroom hunter could react, the monstrous creature swiftly plunged its fangs into his leg. Searing pain shot through Max's body, making him cry out. He tried to recoil, but the venomous bite had paralyzed his right leg. In horror, he watched as the horrific arthropod retreated back into the crevice, taking a piece of his flesh with it. Max desperately looked around, trying to understand what to do now. His leg was completely unresponsive, and all around him was the endless forest thicket. He was alone, at the mercy of the mysterious forces of nature. Fear gripped his body as he tried to comprehend what awaited him. Max stared in terror at the mushrooms scattered around the fallen tree. Now he understood that this had been a trap set by a cunning centipede creature. It had deliberately lured him along the mushroom trail, driving him deeper into the forest depths. Max watched in horror as the massive centipede emerged from its hiding place and began to lay the mushrooms like eggs. The creature carefully placed them around the fallen tree, creating a peculiar clutch. The mushroom hunter realized that these fungi were not just bait, they were part of the centipede's monstrous plan. It had specifically grown them to use as food for its offspring. Max shuddered at the thought of these creatures soon hatching and devouring everything in their path. Paralyzed with fear, Max watched as the centipede skillfully laid the mushroom eggs, coiling its writhing body around them. It seemed to sense his gaze, for it suddenly froze and turned its many-eyed head in his direction. Max held his breath, praying that the creature wouldn't notice him. But in vain, the centipede slowly crawled towards him, its fangs clicking menacingly. Max understood that a terrible fate awaited him: to become food for this monster and its offspring. He desperately looked around, trying to find some way to escape, but his paralyzed leg refused to obey. There was nothing left but to wait for the inevitable death. The centipede approached the paralyzed Max, its numerous legs sliding across the ground with a chilling rustling sound. Suddenly, it lunged forward and sank its fangs in his other leg. Max cried out in pain, but the scream caught in his throat. The creature had also bitten his hand, injecting its venomous sting. Gradually, Max felt his entire body going numb, except for his face. He was horrified, realizing that he would soon become helpless prey for this monster. The centipede, as if toying with its victim, wrapped its writhing limbs around his legs and arms, as if trying to figure out the best way to devour him. Max desperately tried to move, but his body refused to respond. He could only helplessly watch as the creature brought its repulsive head close to his face. He felt its full breath, and saw its jaws opening, ready to tear him apart. In that moment, Max understood that his fate will be far worse than just death. He will be slowly eaten alive by this monster, unable even to scream. He was gripped by a terror that eclipsed all fears ever experienced by man. The centipede wrapped its long, twisting limbs around Max's motionless body, like a spider enveloping its prey. He watched in horror as the creature slowly dragged him towards the massive crack at the base of the rotten tree, the entrance to its dark underground lair. Max desperately tried to scream, to call for help, but his voice was paralyzed by the venom. He could only helplessly observe as he was pulled into the darkness of the sinister burrow. Once inside, Max was horrified to find that it was teeming with other centipedes, a whole swarm of these abhorrent creatures. They immediately pounced on him, coiling their numerous legs and fangs around him. Max felt them begin to tear at his flesh, their venomous jaws sinking into him. The unbearable pain pierced his body, but he couldn't even cry out. His consciousness was slowly fading as he watched the horrific beast devouring him alive. A nightmarish end for the unfortunate mushroom hunter, who had so carelessly wandered into the heart of the sinister forest.